I would love to talk to you about how you transition out of traditional medicine with so much debt.
With the debt on our backs, we just felt like we couldn't move. We felt like we had to work for somebody who couldn't take certain risks.
You got to tell them how much we paid off, too. Come on.
We paid off $662,000 worth of student loan debt. We had some other debt as well. I had IRS debt.
Yo, Renee was on the lam, SD. Yo, the IRS was trying to get her.
You're never going to get me, copper.
They had you peeing in a cup.
And anyway, me. And Jesus Christ.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of What Y'all Say. I'm your host with the most. I'm Dr. Nee. I'm joined by
Dr. Renee.
The amazing Dr. Renee. I'm post-call. I do think that I like to preface it with I'm post-call because I think the energy is different when you're post-call, when I'm post-call, because, you know, it's tough. It's tough. So I did 3 nights in a row, 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's tough. These are one of the tougher shifts because you only get 10 hours off, right? And that's if your body shuts off to sleep immediately at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? Like
Which it doesn't because you're probably signing out.
Yeah, you're signing out. That's done at 8 o'clock. Then you got to, talk to kids, talk to you, check in. You want to get some breakfast. You want to go to bed. Next, it's like 11 o'clock, possibly. Right?
That's a long time.
Right. And then rinse, wash, and repeat. But this was a tough stint, but I'm good. So right now it's like I'm working on fumes right now. So I need Alfred to like give us some like get the energy going. Get the energy going, yo. There you go. But I do love these episodes mainly because one, we've been doing this podcast now almost 10 years. And
damn.
It's for me, I'm always surprised that we have like long time listeners. So I just want to take a quick couple of seconds to just thank some people who off the top of my dome, I'm like, they always listen no matter what, right? So that's Jamar. Thank you. Dr. Noel Blanco.
Ooh, yes. Oh, he sent a text. I got to read it to you.
Yeah, he sent me a text saying that he's trying to actually break 19 minutes in the 5K.
Ooh.
And I think he's on his way to benching past 250 pounds.
Hey, yo.
So he is doing great. Guys, we did a series with him where we helped him find a job. We did it with locumstory.com, right?
No, we did it with PS&D.
PS&D. Okay, my bad. Well, anyway, we did it with them, and they helped him find a job. And then we also, who else do I need to shout out?
Love Anani.
Yeah, I need to shout out Dr. Love. We got a lot of people who just listen. Dr. Cole, orthopedic surgeon now, but when I met him, he was finishing up medical school, but now he's on his own doing his thing. And I just want to say shout out to everybody. If I didn't mention your name, the other thing too is
it's like the romper room. Wait, who remembers the romper room when they mention your name? I think we talked about this before on the show.
Yeah, we mentioned romper room before, and
we didn't call your name.
They never called my name because my name was very ethnic, right? Nee. Yeah.
I see Jane Marie. I see Betsy. I see Nidako.
She doesn't even have to say the accent. She could have just said Nee, and I would have been hyped,
Nidako.
But anyway, guys, I'm super psyched about you guys. The other thing that I want to shout out and let y'all know about is over the last couple of weeks, we've been on, or at least I've been doing podcasts, the whole podcast circle, going on different podcasts. People who listen to our show invite us to go on different podcasts, and I get excited to do that. I don't know about you, but when I go on other podcasts, I think you guys get a better version of me than you do on my show.
What?
Yeah, because I'm more free, right? I don't have to worry about.
Welcome to the Dr. Renee podcast.
Well, I'm free. I don't have to worry about I don't have to produce because if you guys have no idea. Like, you think we're just talking. I'm actually talking. Renee's talking, but I'm also producing. Like, I have like a script that we're trying to follow and make sure that we're staying on track. So when I'm on someone else's show, I ain't got to worry about that, right?
It's free.
Just go to their house, chill, walk around with my shoes on,
Take your shoes off me.
Hey, anybody's listening right now, what's your rules on in your house? Like,
take
you
your
take your shoes off?
No, take your shoes off.
What about, so that's the easy one, but what about when you go to someone else's house?
You take your shoes off.
Do you ask to take your shoes off?
I assume.
That's one option.
I assume.
2, do you take your, so what was the first option? Do you take your shoes off without asking? 2, or do you ask? And 3, do you just keep them on?
No, I just assume take my shoes off.
So everywhere you go, you always wear socks?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Because if you don't wear socks, then you could be walking into someone's house without any...
Well, you're saying like summertime or something if I'm wearing sandals?
Or even if they have carpet, right?
Okay.
Do you really want to put your feet on someone else's carpet?
Well, it's better than putting what came from outside on their carpet.
Yeah, but you don't know what they have on their carpet. That's what I'm saying.
I understand that, but it's better than putting what came from outside on their carpet.
I don't know. Text us. Let us know about that. Because I don't know. I don't like walking around someone's carpet with just barefoot. I don't know. This doesn't work for me.
Okay.
But I always wear socks.
Right. So
but the women don't do that though a lot.
So you just don't go to people's house if you wearing sandals.
No.
Want to come over? No,
I'm wearing sandals today. Yep, I'm wearing sandals. Yo, text us and let us know what you think. Am I right? Is Renee right?
You can DM us. You can send us fan mail at that link below
check out the show notes.
This episode. You can send us something by Instagram. You can leave a comment on YouTube or on Instagram posts or anything that you see us on TikTok posts. So however you want to do, you can go to our website, docsoutsidethebox.com.
Go in and check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to say the other sound. So I said .com.
Yeah. But listen,
it's trademarked.
Let me shout out the Pre-Med Scene podcast. I did that episode last week. Woo-hoo. By the time this show comes out, basically it's pre-meds who are trying to get doctors who are established, who can give some advice. And let me go to my notes.
Wait, hold on. How you get on that podcast and I didn't?
They asked me to be on that show.
They don't know what they're doing there.
And she asked some really great questions.
She don't know what she's doing.
Questions that I even forgot.
She knew.
I even forgot to answer some of these questions. Like for example, like she had me thinking about what it was like to apply to med school twice. So just so y'all know, I applied to medical school 2 times. The first time I applied, I wasn't very strategic about it at all. I applied 2 years later and got in. She asked about what was my life like during those 2 years of trying to figure out what to do. I mean, we covered everything from me being like, how did I develop like a chip on my shoulder during that time to, why I decided to apply to the schools that I wanted to apply to. She asked like, why trauma surgery? We got into me talking about taking organic chemistry during the summertime at Rutgers, which is a 4-year institution, right? So that's something that you definitely propose if you're going to take summer classes. Don't take it at a 2-year
If you're going to take post-bac.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah.
But what about summer courses though? Like I'm not talking about post-bac. I'm talking about summertime. You're in your first year going into your second year going into your third year, and you want to take some summer courses. And you want to do like physics or something like that.
So if you're still in college traditionally, you're saying, I think that is maybe a little more forgivable. I still wouldn't necessarily do those classes, but I think that is a little bit more forgivable because the rest of your classes are going to be done at a 4-year institution, right? So, but if you're doing a post-bac and all of it is going to be done at a 2-year institution, that's where it gets a little dicey, I think.
Well, we definitely should do. See, like I love doing these podcasts because it brings you back. Like I think we get so caught up right now. Right now we're in our locums jam, right? We get so caught up in that realm that we, or at least I, forget to talk about the grind, even the grind of paying off debt, but talk about the grind, like what it was like not knowing if you're going to get into med school, applying to med school. And I remember taking Orgo at Rutgers and it basically being like a chapter a day, basically. Like those 5-week courses you go through so much
I did
information.
Organic in the summer too.
It's crazy. It's crazy. The other one that she asked me about, and then I talked about is why the hell we be taking like 19, or what is that pressure to feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses and take like 19 to 20 credits every semester.
I love that one.
You know what I'm saying? So I talked about that.
You're going to take like 19, 20 credits. And otherwise, they're not going to take you seriously.
And it's not even just 19 to 20 credits. Why do you have to take biochemistry, bio, and orgo in the same semester.
Oh, don't forget, you're also shadowing and you're volunteering all at the same time. Oh, and you do work study
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Why do we do stupid shit like that? Yo, I'm sorry, I have to curse, but why do we do stupid shit like that?
Because pre-meds, literally, many of them have no clue what it actually takes to get into medical school. So they think, well, it's hard, so I have to do hard things.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it's like, it don't have to be that hard.
Yo, I'm going to take physics in the same semester with bio, and I'm going to take calculus, all the same thing. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah. How many credits you got? Like 17? Why? Because I just need to take 17.
I need to take 17.
And I'm about to be 18.
I have to show that I can handle a rigorous load. And it's like, yeah, but you also need to pace yourself so that you can actually do well in the classes. Now, if you can do well in the classes doing all of that, great. But I'm going to tell you, in my experience, I don't know too many people who can do that.
Well, before we go on a tangent, though, I agree with you. The one thing that folks need to consider, too, is like a lot of those courses, like you're taking bio, physics, like a lot of that stuff is not putting you towards getting your degree, though. Also.
Well, it depends on the degree.
It depends on the degree, but a lot of times it could not be. But it's just something to think about.
It depends, right? If you're a bio major, a chemistry major, then yeah, it is.
What if you're a PChem major? Because there's always that one person. I want to go to graduate PChem and then go to med school.
Yeah, that is probably putting you closer.
Why are you taking PChem for?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to take inorganic chemistry.
Man. Let's go into our first question. Let's do this. Alfred, I'm going to send you this question. So it goes, how to transition out of traditional medicine with so much debt? Should I say this person's name? I'm not going to say this person's name. Let's jump right into it. My name is SD, and I am a pediatrician who listened to your talk at the recent LGS virtual summit run by Dr. Peter Kim. I would love to talk to you about how you transition out of traditional medicine with so much debt, or at least it sounded like it. You said something about Affordable Care Act, and I just would like to know more details about how you did it, because finances, or lack thereof, is the main barrier as to why I am not even beginning to make any moves at all. My husband is in charge of our finances. And every time I raise a question of changing my path or changing my work lifestyle, he discourages me and says we cannot afford it and tells me not to move. Can you help me, please? I think if he hears your methods, he'll be persuaded and confident to allow me to make a move. SD, thank you very much for writing this in. Dr. Renee, everybody listening, do y'all want me to be responsible, Dr. Nee, or should I be toxic Nee?
You know what? Surgeon's choice.
Because you know what? I've also, before I answer this question, I did not know so many different people listen to this show. I told you I walked into the post office and Mr. Evans was like, yo, I listened to your show. And I was like, oh! Like, I feel like there's
Shout out to Mr. Evans.
I'm not going to lie, guys. Like, I'm not like this, like, personally, like, off the show. But
what you about to say? Because it's a lie. Whatever it is you're about to say is a lie.
What do you... Well, you saying I'm pardon?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'd like you to... What are you talking about?
Whatever you're about to say sounds like it's about to be a lie.
I'm just saying that, like, there are people who I know who will be like, yo, I listen to the show, and I'm like, oh, like, it's scary sometimes.
Okay.
Because I'm like, what are you taking away from this?
Yeah.
Because I read this from SD, and I'm like, yo, there's already one big red flag right here, but I'm not going to say that. So I'm like, should I be the responsible one and answer this the way that, like, a responsible person should answer this? Or should I be the toxic person and be very toxic, be like, yo, why is he handling all your finances? As a pediatrician, aren't you probably making more than him? But anyway, I digress.
You don't know. You don't know what her husband does.
Let me pull back. SD, what do you got to say? Or Dr. Renee, what you got to say about this? You go first.
I feel like you got a lot to say about it.
Yeah, I do. Thank you for writing in.
Yes. First of all, SD, thank you for writing in. Thank you for listening to the show.
You said all that, man. Jump into this, girl. Come on.
So, all right. first things first, you want to know about how we transitioned out of traditional medicine. Now, it depends on what you mean by transitioning out of traditional medicine, right? Because while we transitioned out of the typical schedule that our specialties
Let me do
tend
sit-ups.
to
I'm
carry.
gonna do sit-ups while you do this
No,
because
don't.
I gotta get my energy.
No, it's
I gotta get my
distracting.
energy.
Oh Lord, help
Answer the
us
question,
all.
man.
While we transitioned out of the traditional way that our specialties practice, we are still traditionally doing medicine, right? So we do locums, which basically means that we're not necessarily hired by or work for or employed by a hospital or a practice, right? So we go to where there is a need. We find anyway that helps us to control our schedules better, especially because we have children. But it also actually allows us to make a little bit more money given the time that we put in to as much as we work.
Yeah, we're way more efficient with how we
Right?
make money.
Yeah, we're more efficient
More
with how
efficient.
we make money. So I don't know if that's something that your husband is aware of. Now, the way that we transitioned out was we paid off our student loan debt quick, fast, and in a hurry. That was for us. That was kind of like the rate limiting step because with the debt on our backs, we just felt like we couldn't move. We felt like, we had to work for somebody who couldn't take certain risks, things like that.
Yo, so you just gonna just say we paid off the debt? Like you got to tell them how much we paid off too. Come on,
We
man.
paid off $662,000 worth of student loan
Alfred.
debt. We had some other debt as well. I had IRS debt.
Yo, Renee
and-
was on the lam,
Oh,
yo.
Lord.
SD. Yo, the IRS was trying to get her.
You're never gonna get me, copper.
Garnishing your wages and everything.
Anywho,
They had you peeing in a cup.
and anyway, me and Jesus Christ, me bought a house in 2006.
Yes, I did. With no money down, everybody could get a house at that time. Why couldn't I get a house?
Well, I know this. I know that your house went from, being how much it cost to a third of what it cost within 2 years.
When we talk about house poor, yo.
Value decreased.
So I could afford my mortgage. I just couldn't afford to put anything else in it. But keep going.
Yeah. So that's pretty much how we transitioned out of traditional medicine, if you will. Now, if you're talking about transitioning out of medicine in general, or really going like, in a way that, most people don't go, that's a different story. So it really depends on what you mean by transitioning out of traditional medicine. As far as the conversation that you're having with your husband, I think that conversation, I don't know what your husband does. I don't know what his personality is.
Well, hold on. Real quick, because if I may throw in this part.
What?
So several episodes ago, I got to find that episode. I don't know if Alfred can find it, but we had a pediatrician who was on the show. This dude was
Dr. Trevor.
He's fresh out of residency.
Mm-hmm.
He decided to do locums, and he is making boku money, right? He's making what I would say a hospitalist, maybe even an orthopedic surgeon would be making. He's making a lot of money. Now, there's some, in terms of his lifestyle, it might be a little bit different than what you're used to. He's not married. He doesn't have kids. And he basically goes from extended stay to extended stay to extended stay hotel. But he makes money. Right. So one thing to note is if you're thinking that, well, maybe being a pediatrician can be, because I think a lot of people think, well, being a pediatrician, you're at the lowest of the lowest in terms of salaries and stuff, right? Initial starting salaries.
Crazy.
But
it's crazy to me.
But it's let me tell you something right now. Within the locums realm, pediatricians they make bank.
They do well.
They do well. So that's why I wanted to make sure that was just one issue.
That might be an episode that you and your husband listen to. And again, you don't have to do it like Dr. Trevor does it, right? There are lots of different ways to carve out how you're going to do this and still be able to be more efficient with how you make money. So, just understand that locums is not necessarily a template, right? Locums is an option, and you essentially build your own template on how you're going to do it. So some people travel for locums. Other people don't necessarily travel for locums. Who was the one that we had on? Dr. Derek Barnes,
Yeah, yeah. The
right?
OB.
Right? The OB, right? He wasn't necessarily traveling for locums,
I
right?
can't remember, but he didn't have to because
Right.
he ended up the job that he worked, he bounced, and then they wanted him to
Right.
come back and work as a locums, and he's like, all
Exactly.
right, well,
Yeah. And
the
that's
rent
kind
is
of
high. This is how much we gonna pay.
right. And
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
happened to us, right? We essentially left our jobs, and the same jobs then took us back on as locums. So that, I mean, that's an option as well, potentially, depending on where you're working now and what the climate is over there. That if you leave your job might actually be like, well, can you not leave? Can you just, do
yeah.
something? And then you say, okay, well, I'd like to work as locum. So now you have the same job. You're in the same thing. You're doing the same thing, except that you make your own schedule and you set your own rate. You set the rate. Don't let them come at you with, this is how much we'll pay you. No, 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 no. When the plumber comes to your house, you don't tell the plumber how much you're going to pay him. The plumber tells you, this is how much it costs for me to come to your house. And that's what you want to do. Be the plumber.
So let's get to the hard part now. So let's go back to what
The
she
husband.
said. She said, my husband is in charge of our finances, and every time I raise a question of changing my path or changing my work lifestyle, he discourages me and says we cannot afford it and tells me not to move. Without knowing too much of the dynamics, I think the number one thing that I would say is you need to have a sit down with your husband and find out what's coming in and what's going out, right? Like you guys need to have an open, transparent discussion where he opens up the Excel document or whatever you guys are using to document how things come in terms of money and then what goes out. You both need to be on the same page so that you're aware of that. Next, once you do that, then I think you can definitively say, or have, I don't know if you could definitively say, but I think the next step would be finding out, well, how much is my income really bringing in? How much is it contributing to the finances of the house? And if I were to decrease by a certain percentage, can we still get by? Do you have an emergency fund, right? So what we do in terms of emergency fund, we make sure, or we advocate for to have at least 6 months to 12 months of expenses, not income, expenses, right? So your bills, your car payment, mortgage. We would even say your student loan payments, right? To have 6 months of those so that if you were to lose your job for any reason, you have 6 months to kind of get your stuff in order. You can go to that instead of going to credit cards, right? Do you have any student loan debt? Do you have anything major that you definitely have to take care of, right? So that you can really use numbers as well as emotion, because it's important too to be like, look, man, I can't stand my coworkers, so I don't want to go to work. And if that in combination with the money, right, with the finances or the numbers makes sense, then you could bounce. But having that conversation with him, I think would make it, would put you guys on the same page so that you truly yourself understand how much you're contributing by going to work on a daily basis, right? Because if you feel like you need to transition out of the traditional way of practicing and maybe you need to encompass locums, then, looking at the numbers and saying, hey, well, what if I actually brought in more, actually? Or what if I brought in the same amount, but I'm working less days? What does that do, right? Those are the type of conversations that you and your husband have to be having, very quickly, because if you're bringing in a salary, in my opinion, and you don't know any of those things, the big thing that I would say is like, well, like, how do you know how this money is being accounted for, right? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to see, I look,
Start beef.
I'm just trying to be real, right? I'm just trying to be real,
but
right?
even more than that, though, right?
But it's inherent in this question, though.
I understand. But I mean, even more than that, two things that I have to say is, what if something happens to your husband and you don't know anything about your finances? Forget your husband is no longer. What if your husband gets very, very sick and he is still, he's still alive, but he is unable to do the thing that he has been delegated to do, which is the finances. And now you have to take care of it.
Yeah, because
Do you know where your accounts are?
Do you know the logins?
Do you know the
passwords?
logins? Do you know the passwords?
The verifications? Do you know all
what
that
do
stuff?
you know about your finances, right? Because now you're going to be relegated to potentially taking care of him and the entire household when, you know,
Look at
if
Dr.
something
Renee.
happens to him.
Look at Dr. Renee
right?
being all responsible.
No. But because
so-
right now we're kind of talking about it like, oh well, you know, he's doing all the finances and this, that, and you don't know and whatever. It's like, okay, forget all the, you know, potential chauvinistic da 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 da. What about the practical? Would you be able to take care of yourself and your family if something were to happen to your husband, he was actually no longer able to do the finances, right? Because for me, if I were a man, right, I would be very concerned about that. I'd be extremely concerned about that. What will happen to my family if something happens to me? Because if you're thinking about provider mode, then you can't just provide the money. You've got to provide the education. You've got to provide the way. You've got to provide the path as well, right? Otherwise, you throw your family under the bus just because you're not able or you're not here anymore. So for me, that's just the practicality of the thing.
All right, so
that's number one. Wait, I said two things. Okay. One more thing. The other thing is that in your question, it sounds like you and your husband actually never talked about any numbers at all. It says, every time I raise a question of changing my path or changing my work lifestyle, he discourages me and says, we can't afford it. And it's like, hold on a second. What can't we afford?
Well, how do you know he answers that quickly?
Right? Well, right? So what is it that we can't afford?
I think you should pause more a little bit.
What is it that we can't afford? Because if you brought your husband numbers, then he might not be able to say that we can't afford it, right? If you brought him numbers that showed him, hold on, I'm going to be making 1.5 times more and working a third less, can we not afford that? You have to ask numbers. He's playing a numbers game. You've got to play a numbers game too. Both of you should be playing this numbers game. And without numbers, how do you know what you can and can't afford?
Yeah, I'll just be honest with you. When you do it one at a time, when one person is handling it, that's a lot of pressure for one person to do. I think that when you look at numbers, when you look at debt, when you look at lifestyle, like putting that just on one person, that's a lot. That's a lot of pressure. I'll tell you right now, the reason why me and Renee were able to pay off almost $700,000 in student loan debt in 3 years is because we combined our income. We put our minds together. Mm-hmm. Her income became my income. My income
became my income.
Became her income.
Woo-wee.
She convinced me not to do a prenup, but looking back,
you had nothing.
Looking back, you
didn't have anything.
It was a good thing I came off of that because I was smart enough to say, you know what?
You didn't have anything.
I don't need a prenup right now. I trust this girl.
No, you had a Jetta with the shocks of a tricycle.
That Jetta,
and you had a house that was worth a third of what you bought it. What did you have, me?
Yeah, with a fob and everything, with hitting the security system. Hey, yo. So listen, but basically what I'm saying is when two heads are putting their heads together, in essence, right? When you're thinking about this and trying to handle whatever the issue, you guys are going to have a better outcome. There's going to be more trust there. And you guys are going to be able to handle things a lot faster. So our advice is, look, if you want the responsible advice, definitely listen to what Dr. Renee is saying.
Oh, Lord.
If you want the irresponsible version, I'm saying, listen, I got what you're saying, but you still need to look at the finances because I agree. Like, you need to know, like, yo, like, where's this money going to, first of all, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you bring a good point, which is you, SD, you need to come with numbers also.
Yes, so that you got to come with numbers. So you can't come to your husband and saying, I want to do this, and then you don't give him any numbers. It's too much for him.
Right, because he may just be thinking, okay, yeah, like whatever you're bringing in as a pediatrician is probably capped. He's probably thinking that possibly also.
Yes,
right? Let me throw him some bail.
Thought.
Let me throw him some bail. He's probably like, yo, what are you talking about? Like, yo, you can only make this much as a pediatrician. And then when you be like, bam! Yo,
Tommy Davidson.
As a local, wait, yo, buy him right there.
Alfred.
Let me give you one of our cards. You know I'm fresh out. Howard. Bam!
this is how much I could bring in as a pediatrician. Like you said, 1.5 times, maybe even 2 times more, and working the same amount, or maybe working a little bit more, either way, will that change the answer? That's an avenue. So, is there anything else we want to put on this point right here?
I mean, listen, I know all too well I said something to my husband and he didn't listen to me. And then somebody else said the exact same thing.
Come on, y'all.
And then he listened.
Come on, y'all.
Right?
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I know that
Don't
all
do that.
too well.
Don't do that.
Don't
do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
This happens
Don't do that.
all the time.
Don't do that.
It happens all
Don't
the time.
do that. That's wrong.
It happens all the time.
Don't do it.
So I hear it, but sometimes you need that different voice.
Oh,
right?
SD. One thing that you did mention that we didn't talk about, which is
in the middle of a
the
sentence.
Affordable Care Act. So what I meant by that is,
that's true.
your boy in office right now, in Washington, I don't know what he gonna do, right? And the last time he was in office, he tried to take out the Affordable Care Act. All I'm saying is the Affordable Care Act makes it very easy for small business owners like me and Renee, and possibly like you if you decide to do locums, to go and purchase health insurance on the market, right? You have adequate health insurance that is reasonable, right? So if that Affordable Care Act gets gutted, then more than likely premiums, how much it's going to cost to purchase adequate health insurance, is going to go through the roof. And that may limit people's ability to just kind of work for themselves as a locums, right? They're either going to have to increase their rates, right, to adjust for having to pay for this crazy insurance,
charge our own tariffs,
or I don't know, basically, or I don't know, but I don't know what that looks like, to be honest with you. So I don't want that to deter you. I think that is such a minor issue. It was just something that I was thinking about. I was like, man, my man back in 2017 tried to take it down, and if it wasn't for Maverick, we wouldn't have an Affordable Care Act at this point. So I don't know if he's, looking to torpedo that. So that's why I mentioned that during the
and that may or may not be a problem, depending on if your husband gets health insurance from his job.
Yes,
then you can just, you don't have to worry about buying health insurance from the marketplace, because if your husband gets health insurance from his job, then he can just add you on to his health insurance. So,
SD, good question, yo. Dr. Renee, listen to what Dr. Renee has to say, because she's very responsible. I'm toxic.
Anyway, you weren't too toxic today.
Let's take a break.
You weren't too toxic.